Zambia, as you know, has been a copper economy. So naturally, this issue of diversification, which will be the subject of the conference we'll be having, is going to be highlighted.
This seems to be a recurrent rhetoric. It's been on the table for a long time. Every regime that has gone by has identified this need as a way forward.
Why has Zambia failed to diversify? Most resource-based economies, especially mineral resources, oil and others, usually they find it very difficult to move out of that principal commodity for various reasons, but I'm sure you've heard of what they call the Dutch disease. Many of these resource economies, the industry upon which the resource is based is usually the one which is paying the highest salaries and so forth. And it becomes very difficult to start something outside the resource industry. But we think that this can be broken. Chile is similar to us. It is an economy which is based on copper. But if you go to Chile, they have successfully broken out of that. They now have other things they export. The agriculture sector, for instance, has been very well developed. The fisheries sector, even here in Zambia, you do drink Chilean wine now. It was not there before. So those are some of the good lessons we can learn from about how to break out of the resource jacket and start doing some other things to diversify. If you look at countries that don't have natural resources, for instance, two economies I always like to give as examples, Kenya and Cote d'Ivoire. But this might change also because Kenya also they've discovered oil. And Cote d'Ivoire, by the time when I was there, they already had gas and other things there in the belt where there is a lot of oil and gas. But these economies, because they didn't have a big resource industry, were able to develop agriculture much more than we've done, and they diversified agriculture. And they do export a lot of agricultural products and they process some of them. So you can see clearly that if you are not endowed from the beginning, perhaps you start producing other things much earlier than those countries that have always to look at the key resource or mineral resource.
Diversification of economy in Zambia. This theme is quite topical.
The diversification that's being talked about is to look at other sectors where we can tap in and develop that would produce a lot of job opportunities as well as income and entrepreneurship.
I'll also refer to the latest effort that have been put in place by Zambia and Zimbabwe towards a more facilitated, channel of exchange.
If you look at the energy sector, again, the word is diversification, because Zambia has been predominantly relying on hydroelectricity generation, and with the current challenges we have with electricity supply in the country, I think it's important to start walking the talk about diversification by looking at different sources of energy. We're talking about the energy mix. We're not saying we do away with hydro, but we can do better to look at other energy mixes so that should we have incidents of this nature where we don't have enough water to drive our hydro generation, we can look at things like solar and other sources of energy.
It comes to a point where this topic cannot leave any player outside. And for Bureau Veritas, a company that is in here in this country to assist the economy in terms of facilitation and capacitating the players to get into an international market. What I mean by international market is the globalization. There was no way we could sit aside this conference, because here we will come in with our competences, our capabilities in terms of resourcing the company, being a certification, inspection and testing company. We can accompany, and we will actually, so far as they come to us, we will accompany these players in terms of getting into the international norms, international standards.
When you look at our operations, I think people have known us to be an oil marketing company, and we talk about fuel and lubricants. I would like to point out, and I think it's common knowledge now, that Total is into solar big time. So it's one of the things the company is looking at diversification, not just fuel, but to provide energy that's accessible to all. As a matter of fact, I think on a retail front, we're providing lighting solutions to our customers. We are selling or retailing our solar products in our service stations spread across the country. And one thing also I would like to mention about Total, we are in all the 10 provinces of Zambia, meaning we are going into rural areas which sometimes might not be very attractive for private investors to go, but we look at our services we want to provide to all the customers, and we want to be close to the customers. So we're providing a solution in a way in the instances where we have challenges with power supply, and we're providing lighting solutions.
When it comes to international markets, there are some norms that are required when we're going from one country to the other with your products or your services. We need to abide, you work in accordance to the requirement. And that's where we come in as a player. And mainly, I would say that conference is a strategic platform for us to showcase our competencies and also get people on board.
So we want to create a different environment from what has existed before, so that our people can be given access to things markets they never had before.
To me, it makes sense that we bring together companies that have got different skills and marry them to create something different out of their comfort zone. That's what diversification is. Diversification is not doing exactly what you're doing today. It's trying to find new avenues for business, new opportunities to create value. So to us, and that is why I fall back onto the French-Zambian Chamber of Commerce, is that the joint venture should be the right vehicle for us to promote this diversification. And with that, we'll approach the policymakers to facilitate this. We want to talk fiscal incentive, we want to talk tax incentives, we want to talk facilitation of work permits. Those are the practical solutions that two companies wanting to tango together need to hear.
In my view, what we're trying to do is a game changer. We want business people to sit down and discuss what opportunities exist. If they want to collaborate on exploiting a certain resource, let them collaborate. I think everything we do now should be addressing issues of sustainability. Can we continue eating maize in the same way we've been doing all the time? Or, as the Vice President mentioned the other day, shouldn't we be trying pumpkins and other things as food instead of just looking at maize as the only food? Zambia is very lucky in the sense that we've got two rain zones. The one to the north, which encompasses northern, Luapula, and northwestern, and a bit of the Copper Belt, usually have a lot of rains there. Certain things should only be encouraged that side. And the other parts, which are a bit drier, could do with a little bit of drying and probably more intensified efforts to build dams and reservoirs for water. Electricity, which is a major constraint now, we should find alternative energy sources. And we have so much sun here. I don't see any reason why street lights should be using grid power. You could have solar lights all over. Remove those old things which were left, which are just wasting limited energy. Geysers should be using solar. The technology has been there for a long time. Boreholes should be using solar submersible pumps. If you want the villagers to enjoy better water and therefore be able to even start irrigation in the villages, give them a solar pump. Then they will have abundant water. Congo needs our sugar. Congo needs our eggs. Congo needs our chickens. The solution is not to prevent those who are going to sell there and earning the valuable foreign exchange, but to boost production here so that you can export more. Hopefully you can use some of the logistical companies in our chamber who know how to trade in Congo and collect and be paid for the business that you are doing. Those are the strategies that can help to address this. Just to leave copper as the only foreign exchange earner would not take us anywhere. If we can start exporting more things other than copper, then we can start to accumulate reserves.
What we decided to do last year, about a year and a half ago, was to form this French-Zambian Chamber of Commerce, because we recognized there was a space in Zambia to be filled by French companies, French-speaking investors, and group together those Zambian companies and the French companies to strengthen their relationship. It's extremely important, I think, when we talk about diversification, that we strengthen this network. You don't do a diversification alone. It's just not possible. You don't do things differently from one day to the next without partnering with some new ideas, with some new shareholders, with some joint ventures. And so this is what this chamber is about.
How much you are investing towards the railway sector, the railway sector?
Roughly just count about just under $20 million. So it's a sizable investment. You know, it's not something that is signed off the back of the napkin on over lunch. And this is one of the reasons why we're engaging the Minister of Finance on a regular basis to try and get some stability as well in the policies here.
Were you simply saying the possibility of investment is very much there and the willingness is there, but it's the policy consistency that must be addressed? I want to get you clearly.
Absolutely. Winston, it's absolutely that.
My name is Hasham. I represent Zama Stone Quarries. Our stones are found everywhere in most of the projects that you see around. But we are not the ones causing the traffic, of course. Zama Stone has been there for almost 9 years now. We started on a very small scale as a family business. We've upscaled our investment in 2014 to a whole new corporate level. And it was actually the right step to take and to make, because it was actually escorted with a very good demand on all construction materials, with the booming that happened on the construction sector in the last few years. And which is actually good for our sake, that this sector is growing and won't stop anytime soon, because as we all see that Zambia is growing, and I don't see that. Actually, we even never felt it, that despite all the ups and downs that the economy has been going through, our sector has never been affected, which is a good thing. So, and hopefully it will stay like that. Despite the slight challenges that any economy in the world would have it and would face it, I think we will be getting to a better situation in this sector, particularly in the near future.
Over the last 5 years, Total has invested over $30 million in Zambia in terms of infrastructure development. I'm sure most of you are able to see the new state-of-the-art filling stations that we are putting up across, not just in Lusaka, but across the country. And our aim is really to give customers a unique experience when you come to one of our facilities. If you come to our station, you're able to buy fuel, you do your lubrication needs, you buy your car care products, you can have your car washed whilst you're refueling. You can have a quick snack in our restaurant. So you see that we're trying to put conveniency at the customer's doorstep. Total is a market leader in energy provision in Zambia. We're the #1 oil marketing company in Zambia, if you look at the data provided by ERV. And we are a leader in also providing solutions. Right now, the challenge we have as a country, I think, is a power deficit. I think everyone knows about it. It's an open secret. And there's the issue of is it load management, they're calling it, load management. So to provide a solution, we're offering solar lighting solutions, which we are selling through our retail outlets. We are selling solar lamps, and this is able to give our customers and the citizens an opportunity for lighting solutions. And that we feel we are providing an alternative and helping out government to address the challenge of energy deficit. So we are very excited to be part of this conference as Total.
We help the companies achieving those standards so that they can fit into any system at all, should it be in Zimbabwe or wherever. And mainly, we associate quality to sustainability, we associate quality to growth, we associate quality to everything which is outstanding. Here I'll be talking about certification. Okay, we are leader in certification. We help company optimizing their management system, their quality, so that they can actually jump into the next step of their growth, which is their sustainability.
Do you feel we have diversified enough as Zambia, particularly that we are going to the continental free trade area? Because diversification is a song we have sung since independence, but to date we are still mining.
We would not be discussing this if we had diversified our economy. The current problems we're facing are because we failed to diversify. But let me also emphasize that it is not only diversifying the mineral sector or the export sector. We need to diversify almost in everything. If you look at the energy problem we are facing today, it's because we didn't diversify. We relied on hydropower, yet there is so much sun here.
I wanted to find out the diversity of your business, particularly when you go into rail sector. The publication Southern Times looks at regional integration. How do you hope to integrate your business?
In Zambia, it is crucial for us to follow the lead of the Minister of Transport in his effort to move more bulk cargo on the rail. Less truck on the road means less maintenance cost, for the government on the road. It means, a better environment, because if we move roughly 200,000 tons off the road onto the rail, it's the equivalent of about 200 hectares of new forest planted, just to give you an idea. And this business of ours is not only in the transport, we're also in the cultural sector. We are working on a project in Zambia to open a multimedia center, which is called Canal Olympia, where we would have a cinema and a live stage performance, so that we can identify local talents and then move them into the greater network of Universal Music, which belongs to the group as well, through its Vivendi shareholding.
Our country at the moment, you might think this is a black economy. Increased interest rates, inflation above the threshold, GDP is something else. We have high debt, we have a tightened liquidity. Our exchange rate is going it's going like in the opposite direction. Everything seems to be going in the negative direction. Can you, with confidence, still say Zambia is a destination for investment, considering also the fact that we have inconsistency in the policies at the moment? Can you advise an investor to say Zambia is still a suitable investment opportunity?
Why are we not very successful? I think some of the strategies we have been taking, like obviously having copper dominate everything, it's not a good thing. But again, I'll touch a little bit in my presentation on resource-based economies, where if you've got one huge resource, like Nigeria has got oil, Angola has got oil, sometimes diversifying is very difficult, because what happens in that key sector has got very serious impact on the other sectors. For instance, the copper sector will push salaries to a certain extent. And if you want to do something, you are competing for the same skill. You may find that they will first of all get what they can get before you, who can't offer the same salary, can get, and of course what remains, the residual, might not be the best in the manpower. So these are issues which are particular to resource-rich countries, and that's the reason why you must strategize to see how you can use the wealth from your resource to help turn around the economy. Most of you have heard of sovereign wealth funds which have been created so that whatever you earn during years, plentiful years, you can put some money aside to help you support the budget during lean years. Now, you know what we have been doing. Have we done anything like that? Yet there are some countries that have successfully established sovereign wealth funds, and they even put a little bit of the money for future generations, because you don't want in the future your grandchildren to just read that, oh, we used to be a copper-rich country, and our grandparents ate everything, and now we've got nothing. Now, interest rates, inflation, all these are a reflection of what is happening. If you don't have food, it's natural that prices will go up. If you don't have a lot of investment funds, it's natural that the little funds will be rationed. If the government is borrowing a lot from the financial market, it leaves very little. As a result, what the business community will access will go at a very high interest because, as they say, they've crowded out the private sector.
The donors have closed down on the budget support. And given the debt portfolio that Zambia has and the ambitious program to diversify, do we see the diversification program succeeding? I know France, Britain were key budget support entities. Now, given the prevailing scenario, I'll ask it as Zambia, France, Chamber of Commerce. Do we see this diversification succeeding, particularly that we need to maximize homegrown resources?
For you, Jeff, what I want to say about donors is that I think you should stop thinking of diversifying through donor systems. We want, and even the theme we are discussing, have you seen anybody here representing government, French government company? They are all private sector companies. And I think we can learn a lot from them. You can grow to be a global company without the government. If we keep on looking into what donor funds are going to do for us, those funds, normally when they come for public sector projects, where a little bit percolates to the private sector, it's usually fought over, and sometimes only the few can access to. We want to have an economy where everybody who has got a good idea can succeed without necessarily having to bow down to a government official or whatever. The donors also are tired. They've been assisting us for so many years and they don't see the results. But at the same time, Zambia was reclassified as a lower middle income country. And that classification has got implications for access to global resources. For instance, in that classification, you don't get these concessional funds. If you go to the World Bank, if you are a middle income country, and you might not access either resources easily. Or if you go to the African Development Bank, you might not access the African Development Fund resources easily. So those are the issues. That's the reason why you see that access to donor funds has gone down. And similarly, even some of the funds we used to take for granted can't come here anymore. Some of the donors have closed offices. You know that a lot of donor countries have closed offices here because their agenda is to help the poorest of the poor. Now, if you reach a certain level, then you squander your wealth. I don't think they are going to come back and say, no, we want to help you because you squandered your wealth. So look after what you have properly so that you don't have to go back because there is no second round.
Maybe in the past 2 years, how much investment or trade are we talking about that has happened between Zambia and France? I just want to find out how you guys are working together to see that actually you are really helping to bring these solutions, as everyone is saying that these elephants, there's problems of data and stuff. So I want to see your value to Zambia's economy? Thank you.
The trade between Zambia and France is quite small actually, because on one side you've got France, which is one of the largest investors in Africa and Europe as a whole, but France is one of the biggest ones. But the main part for this investment are going to North Africa and West Africa. Now East Africa is developing as well for trade with the French companies, and we have a lot of French companies in Kenya, for instance. But apart from South Africa, and which is a hub for southern region, Zambia is still very good for French investment. So it's I should say it's a few dozens of millions of dollars, but it's very small compared with the whole thing.
What challenges are you facing to penetrate, to make it as big as other countries, like maybe South Africa and maybe Middle East Africa?
Well, first you've got some historical background. Everybody knows that it's easier to penetrate a market when you were here before. I'm talking about before independence. Yeah, because, and also language. You know, French-speaking Africa is West Africa, part of Central Africa. But I should say that language is very important, and for some French investors, it's a barrier as well. And then most of the headquarters or regional head office are in West Africa. So opening a new office in Southern Africa, it's a whole process. It takes time. As Alex Eby was saying, Bureau Veritas is here only for 4 years. You know? So we got more French company coming now, but it's a slow process. Apart from these large multinationals like Bolloré, Total, and Lafarge, it's a slow process, and we have to penetrate. We have got competition, not only South African, not only UK, but now the Chinese, Turkey. All these countries have been developing links with Africa for the last decade, and we've been maybe a bit too slow to react. So the French chamber is a new chamber. It's not. We have no miracle recipe. It's just we have to trying to create and grow a new network for this company to have more confidence, and why not settle down in Zambia, you know. On the other side, I should say that Zambia has implemented a national development program, number 7, I think, something like that, for the next between 2017 and 2021. So it will be running on until 2 years' time, but on the ground, the results, concrete results, are very weak as well. So if the efforts are not coming from Zambia as well to attract new investors, it's going to be even slower. So the whole process should be bilateral. It should be from the French side, and also from the Zambian side. And that's concerned from public policies and governments.
We don't want to dissociate the efforts of France from the European efforts. France is one of the largest contributors of the European Union budget in Zambia. So when you see the European actions on the ground, or their involvement into the social development, or into the relationship with the authorities to advise, to counsel, foster trade, bilateral trade between Europe and Zambia, France plays a large part of this. What we're trying to do as the French-Zambian Chamber of Commerce is obviously to go deeper into this and to now give access to Europe through the French market to our Zambian partners. Because Europe is big. You know, in Europe you have a huge diversity of different technologies and companies and languages and cultures. So all we're trying to do is to just bridge between Zambia and Europe through the French markets. There's great, exciting technology in France, a lot of startup companies that want to partner with Zambian companies. They just need that link. They need somebody to hold them by the hand, tell them it's safe here, it's good environment for the following reasons, and then you just lead them into Zambia. And where the government can help us, the policymakers can help us, for this diversification is to make it easy for those investors to come, joint venture with some local partners. Obviously, we need the local Zambians to help us to come into Zambia. You know, the French are not going to come here and suddenly feel at home. They need a partner here. So you need incentives, and you need rebates, and you need exemptions, and that's where the policymakers come in.
Thank you very much for attending this groundbreaking economic conference, the first of its kind, of its nature, organized by the French-Zambian Chamber of Commerce. As ambassador and as honorary chairman of the chamber, I take very seriously my role to ensure that French companies are well represented in Zambia. Zambian companies also find their mark in the French market, and that all together we contribute to the development of Zambia.
Bolloré has a long history and a strong relationship with Zambia. We have been here for more than 50 years. It has been created in 1964.
Our core business, of course, as Bolloré, is transport and logistics. Of course, we do sea freight, we do road freight, air freight, warehousing, local custom clearances. We do advise a lot on projects, solar projects and other projects.
The Total Group is the fourth largest oil integrated company in the world. It's the second largest solar energy in the world after the acquisition of the assets of Sun Power. We have operations in more than 130 countries with over 100,000 employees. We have what we call a young dealership scheme in our system. This is a scheme where we empower local Zambians. We run our business as a service station, like I said, through our dealers. These are Zambian business people who run our service stations, and they employ what you guys interface with the customer attendants, who we call field attendants. So for those who've worked for us for a longer period of time and they're loyal to the brand, we empower them under the scheme where we're able to give them a loan and they're able to run a service station on their own as a business person. So you'll find that some of the service stations, the big service stations in Lusaka, are being run on a full-time basis by people who were pump attendants, but now they're real businessmen, and we feel we are contributing greatly to entrepreneurship and business creation in this country.
We are already in Lusaka since 2015, Ndola, and also Kitwe. This is to create proximity. We used to be all over the world, accessible, but we come into Zambia to be close to our customers, to help our customers achieving their needs and getting rid of logistics constraints, which are language barrier, flights, price discussion over the phone. So we're now here in Lusaka.
As a shipping line, we can also sell inland transportation. Let's make it clear that we only sell inland transportation if we manage to sell with our clients sea freight maritime solutions coupled with then the intermodal services. So being in Zambia, we are lucky enough to have access to 4 different ports, which, if I start by the west, Walvis Bay in Namibia. So that's a very promising port which gives very good access to the US market, but also to the European market. We also have a direct service straight to Asia for Walvis Bay. Then Durban, which is, let's say, a more mature corridor, which gives direct access to China in a good amount of time. Beira, which is a corridor where the containerized industry is very well positioned, and where we as CMA-CGM, from a CMA-CGM perspective, are very well positioned as well. And then Dar es Salaam, which is obviously one of the biggest and the most famous corridor for Zambia market. How CMA can contribute to the Zambian economy? We have decided since 2 years ago to almost exclusively support Zambian transporters for 95% of our exports.
How do you work with local businesses, especially SMEs, in your intermodal system? to provide services to them in terms of logistics and delivery, and also coming from a point of interest as someone spearheading the e-commerce revolution in Zambia. How can your services support e-commerce, the growth of e-commerce in Zambia? Because last mile delivery is a major challenge that we have in e-commerce, and especially bringing in goods from outside.
We do not manage, we are not a company which is supposed to promote any concepts or whatsoever. We can participate to the promotion of the products by transporting it abroad and making sure that after it can be sold locally. Yeah, that's how we do on the export side. On the import side, the way we can contribute to Zambian companies is obviously some Zambian company can only run properly with some type of goods that are not accessible in Zambia. Okay, so our role is to ensure that we can make this product available wherever it comes from. We've seen the services, the direct services of CMA-CGM, but our mission is to link Zambia to the rest of the world. So through connected services, we can make Zambia connected to any country in this world.
How are they using emerging technologies in line with, for example, blockchain technology to enhance their supply chain management? And like one presenter said, from the farm to the fork. So how are you using any such emerging technologies in between the farm and the fork to ensure that the end user is confident of what they're getting?
You specifically mentioned about the farm to fork, which is quite an interesting field. It falls under what we call agri and food. We Bureau Veritas have made such that in as much as our clients will be evolving, we do enough to match their requirements. And in that connection, in that respect, we've actually digitalized our way of working with the stakeholders with regards to food. There is what we call precision farming. Okay? We've moved from sending inspectors through thousands of acres of farm. We moved from them to the use of drones. This is part of what we call digitalization and innovation. We've also moved from sending certificates through courier to e-certificates. A farmer can load onto our system and go and retrieve e-certificate straight away as and when it's ready. This is also innovation in terms of technology. In Southern Africa, we've built a state-of-art laboratory, microbiological laboratory. We've met all the requirements because this laboratory is accredited for all the standards concerning food safety, and in that respect, it can provide as much as possible.
The second question about the e-commerce, okay, so the e-commerce has been quite predominant in our strategy in the last, I would say, 5 years. It's not really a matter of the last mile delivery for us. The e-commerce aims to simplify the interaction that we have with our clients. So instead of having our clients coming to the office and potentially queuing in the peak time of the day, we give them the possibility to log in our system, place the booking on our system, we receive the notification, we handle it. We don't want to cut the relationship, we still talk to them on the phone, we still interact with them by email, but we simplify the process by creating the e-commerce platform.
On Bureau Veritas, you mentioned that you're sponsoring women in Africa, for example, as one of your sponsors. I see a lot of men in the room and talking, so I just would like to ask you, in terms of, because I do believe that we share one value, French and Zambia, is promoting women, I imagine. So I'd like to understand in your companies, which is basically the way to promote women and Zambian women within the organization.
Our regional office sits in Johannesburg, right? It's worth 700 employees. I've got Jean-Michel coming straight away from there, and he can certify all leaders from the vice president are women. I'm saying it again. All leaders from the vice president, human resources, finance, what again? All leaders. And there was a rubric in one of the regional newspapers that talked about that topic. Bureau Veritas is led in Southern Africa by women. I'm very proud of it. But this will change very soon when I move to the other office.
I had the impression from the agenda that the companies were also going to speak on their own experience of the current economic situation in Zambia. Is this going to happen now, or will it happen after the keynote speaker's presentation?
It's true that the hydropower has demonstrated to be very stable as compared to wind, as compared to photovoltaic. But then, if some projects were directed to those other type of power generation, that could have compensated what we're suffering now. So here, there's a lack of diversification. Zambia is large enough for growing many other varieties of rice, yam, whatever. Now coming to Bureau Veritas. Whenever any stakeholder, economical stakeholder wants to diversify, I promise you, it's as much as we came in on the right time. We've got experience from being all over the world. We can capacitate. We've got the expertise to assist, to come in and help in terms of advice, in as much as that stakeholder is willing to move ahead, to get into the globalization, to get into the international market. My feeling is that we are in Zambia at the right moment to assist whoever wants to get up and diversify.
Like in our business, the load shedding has decreased our production or our turnover by almost 30%. And that is really alarming, you know. And seeking alternative energy solutions is not always easy for us, considering so many factors, environmental factors, for say, like starting with generators, or it's not really always an ecological, from an ecological point of view, it's not a really good solution. But we might have to seek that way at some point. At the end, the business has got to survive. I think that there's also an opportunity here for everyone to start thinking about I'm not talking only for my own sake, but generally, investing in the energy sector is always a good idea in this country. At first, like a few years ago, we thought and we saw some good potential of people who would like to invest, but then they came out because we all thought that no, that was just a temporary crisis that is going to end. But here we go again, and this time it looks more serious than before. So talking about diversification, I think there's always renewable energy solutions, from like the waste to energy or the solar plants, that can be always thought about, because it could be our solution.
Looking at our industry, what we see, what we would like to do, obviously we move a lot of minerals, a lot of coppers, and I believe it's the same for our competitors. If we look at what could be the best prospects and the best option for diversification today, I would say that it's within the agricultural sector. Agricultural sector where Zambia has been very strong, obviously maize. I have not experienced any export of maize here. I believe it's more used regionally or locally or regionally. But where could we diversify from this? I believe that there is a strong potential into cotton, into sugar. But yeah, how can we do? What are the solutions to develop such sector? Obviously, they are the big farmers, they're already running, it's great, but what about the potential of the small farmers that would like to grow as well and to contribute to the economy? Are they equipped financially to cope with the cost of the infrastructure doing business? Do they have some facilities with the bank that would allow them to start investing in the sector? Maybe that's the question that we could wonder and try to find appropriate solution accordingly.
I think the current challenges we have in energy have sort of opened up opportunities. With every crisis, I think if you approach it with a positive mind, you look at the opportunities. If you look at the current power generation in Zambia, I think the experts tell us that about 85% is generated through hydro. And this is a fact that's been known for a very long time. And for me, this conference is coming at the right time, talking about diversification. When we talk about energy, there are other alternatives that we can use, like solar, for instance. We're told that the quality of sun in Zambia is among the best in the region. And we really haven't taken advantage of that. And I do hope that this time around, the talk about diversifying into other energy mixes will be real. And I think one of the challenges when you talk about diversifying into things like solar, there's need for commitment from stakeholders. One of the things that has delayed investment into this sector are the power purchase agreements with the off-taker. Because for you to invest in such alternative energies, you need to have a guarantee that there will be an off-taker who's going to guarantee that they'll buy the power that you do produce. So if we have that guaranteed, there is a lot of appetite from the private sector to take up this avenue. As Total, like I said, I think we're just not sitting back. We've provided the first quick solution, the lighting solution I talked about. On a bigger scale, I know we've done feasibility studies in Central Province. There's supposed to be a solar farm that's supposed to be 130 megawatts. You're looking at an investment of over $250 million. That's a huge investment, so that's why we need the off-takers to commit before such investments are committed. Then secondly, there's the scaling up solar too. I think that's also been very, very slow. And we've been pre-qualified as Total, so we're doing something to contribute. And we'd like to see this diversification, particularly in the energy, to take fruition.
Foreign investors can tell us at least what they can do in order to help us to diversify. And already, from what you heard from all of them, they've got the capacity to actually help us to reach out to markets which probably we can't reach out to on our own. When we just had hydropower, we thought we were even boasting that Zambia has got a lot of water. It can never have some of these problems these other countries have. But look what has happened now. Now, had we diversified our energy sources, perhaps we would have invested in solar, would have invested in wind energy, and a lot of other things. Many of us find it very difficult to diversify because the high commodity prices lead to appreciated exchange rates, currencies. And as a result, it becomes very difficult to start producing something else. Earlier on, I was mentioning that when the price of copper is high, it is like everybody is having a party. Even those who are not directly employed in the copper sector will at least get some of the spin-offs. And so nobody thinks of doing something else until the price starts to fall again. Then you start scampering, looking for other opportunities and so forth. Of course, you won't be able to find them easily in an economy that is now depressed. Dependence on a single commodity or one or two commodities is very risky because the price fluctuations lead to economic fluctuations. Whereas both Zambia and Chile are copper producers, Chile has managed to diversify its economy and exports more than 2,800 distinct products to more than 120 countries in the world. Those products you are seeing in Chile, there are many products and huge. They providing jobs. And much of that transformation in Chile has taken place in agriculture as well as fishing. They produce and export a lot of fish. But also, other activities have benefited. Manufacturing, generally, engineering, they've all done very well. And interesting enough also is that although Chilean mines are owned by the government, and ours were also owned by the government, the Chileans still continue to run their mines publicly owned. In Zambia, we tried, we failed lamentably, and we got out, we took to the private sector, and now we want to grab from the private sector. Chile has managed to diversify because of a number of policy measures that they have taken. Obviously, good economic management is at the center of any success. If you are going to invest, you must know that if I work this much, at the end of the period, this is going to be my reward. But if when you invest in between as you are producing, the policy changes, reverses, then there will be no rewards. You didn't plan for that policy framework, so the results will be different. So it is very important that if we want to succeed in exporting, we must have clear policies. Policies which have inbuilt incentives so that there is reward at the end of an investment period. The infrastructure is important. I was saying, even if if you are exporting, clearly you need that infrastructure we've been talking about with our colleagues here. But even if you want just to sell locally, to bring that rice from Mongo to here, you are not going to bring it if the road is full of potholes. If you want to move from copper, you must have policies which can assist investors to go and invest in other sectors. But if everything is being provided just in the context of copper mining, if all the roads are for the copper belt, all the trains are for the copper belt, and so it will be very difficult to have economic activities in other parts of the country. So that is an area where government can play quite a big role. Most of our people don't know foreign markets. If you are producing cassava, for instance, do you know where you can sell your cassava? So there must be some way of sourcing information to tell you where the cassava markets are, the prices obtaining in each of these markets, so that you can choose between selling your cassava in Congo or selling it in Cote d'Ivoire and things like that. Zambia has had some attempts at diversifying, and I'm sure some of you who have been following the Zambian economy will know that after independence, a lot of industries actually were established in Zambia. But most of these industries collapsed after some time, mainly because of state intervention in a number of manufacturing industries. There was Also, the issue of policies like state ownership, price controls, which killed some of these industries. Obviously, diversification is required in a number of areas. The energy sector, for instance, it's clear that if we continue with hydropower, we will continue. There will be bounds of water shortages and lack of electricity. Then, of course, agriculture, there are many things we can produce. We can also irrigate. It was mentioned earlier that the potential for sugar production in this country is very high. We are exporting a lot of sugar already, but we could double or treble that in a very short period of time. Tourism, a lot of potential, much of it unexploited. When you look at waterfalls here, it's only as if we only have the Victoria Falls. But if you go to the northern circuit, there are a lot of sites where you've got very beautiful falls, and these need to be exploited. Engineering or manufacturing, we've put very sophisticated engineering, just to emphasize the point that if you want to really move forward, you've got to have good technology in manufacturing, in engineering in general, to be able to keep up. Because if you want to compete in the international market, you are not going to do it with the antiquated equipment. In spite of the many years that we have been mining copper here, we haven't really entered into a stage where we can be able to produce equipment for our copper industry. Collaboration between French companies and Zambian companies can help Zambia to penetrate foreign markets. They can also advise on product specifications and standards which are applicable in different markets.
Where is the challenge? Is it a structural problem? Is it a policy issue?
Taxes is for a company over 40%, company tax. Now we have a neighboring country which is only 25%. So now, if anybody wants to come and invest, where is he going to tax-wise?
With these high interest rates, can we realistically expect serious diversification to take place?
What can be done to ensure that we can develop our economy and make other sectors efficient?
Why do we have a problem with power today? The reason we have power today is because the tariffs were too low, sub-economical. Okay? Nobody will lend money to Zambia with the previous tariff.
The government is crowding out the private sector by borrowing too much, because most of the time when you discuss debt, we are looking at external debt, but even domestic debt has got its own problems. So if government can stop borrowing from the market, or at least reduce, then there will be enough, and you will see the interest rates coming down. Attempt to supply power to remote areas using the grid. The cost of constructing the grid is too much. But if you just put up some solar something and then you service that community, it can work better. I would even be happy to have a situation where some of these smaller towns, you can just have this private sector provided electricity, and they connect and they charge what they think is reasonable. They will have a stable power supply, and I'm sure they will be able to pay for it than pretending that we have power when you don't have it. Taxation. I think if you want to the private sector to succeed, you should not overtax them, because in the end there will be nobody to tax. So that is the bottom line. And obviously if you are competing for foreign investment, you must tax the companies in such a way that they don't run off to the next country which has got lower taxes. All these things are things that governments spend a lot of time on, because they want to attract more investment and therefore create those jobs that everybody wants. Irrigation and agriculture, I can only agree with you. Irrigation extends your crop, your farming season. You can even have 3 seasons in a year if you irrigate. But we haven't invested a lot, hence some of these challenges we keep on getting.
Dr. Fundanga, do you think this is tenable in light of the monopoly by ZESCO? Because anytime that we are actually approached by foreign companies who would like to invest in energy, especially to do with alternative energy solutions, it is actually found that it is not commercially viable for them to come and invest into energy, because ZESCO has a monopoly and they insist to be the off-taker for the power. They dictate the price to be charged for the power purchase agreements. Now, in light of that, is it actually feasible to have diversification into power without the breakup of ZESCO?
If only you can have a situation where some of these smaller settlements can just have providers of energy and they charge whatever the users can take, probably you can break that that monopoly of ZESCO. If electricity is not available, but it also becomes very expensive, it's very difficult for industry to function.
Most of you sitting here are Lusaka based, and perhaps most of you think Zambia is Lusaka. But I want perhaps to extend your border and to just provoke the thinking a little bit that there is opportunity in Central Province because, number one, of its location, number two, agriculture being our strongest potential, at least so far as an economy. And if you look at the non-traditional exports that the doctor had presented, much of that comes from Central Province.
Central Province is one province which has had an independent power supplier, isn't it? It has been an independent power supplier, but I believe they have also been suffering from these low tariffs of ZESCO. And we needed to encourage more of that. In the distribution sector, we have had independent supplier, although I think they want to kill them now. But more private sector participation will be good. But flexibility on the tariffs is what is going to encourage investors.
From the video that Dr. Fundanga showed us, we observed even when the government had allocated land to these people, they were still crying out loud for more help from the government. I honestly don't know how much attribution to this overdependence we can make to account for where we are today. But I somehow feel there is an element of overdependence. So to what extent would we expect the government to come in and give us a springboard? And to what extent should we apply ourselves? If people have worked, for example, for a long period of time, did they see one day they'll come out of employment? If so, what were the plan Bs?
The issue of mindset, I think this is always our problem. You can't always go on 60 years, you are just living on donor funding, you are failing to generate your own wealth. Perhaps when we will stop getting this support, even our government also will stop providing even the bulbs. That is an important issue. All countries that have developed, they have had this strong mind about moving forward, being daring about what they want to do, rather than always looking for either the government or some donor to provide the solution.
There is no country that has not developed without small-scale industry. There is no country that has developed without protection. Listen, you know, most countries, they protect their industry, they protect what they are producing other country. We are not doing that. Kalingalinga is one of the richest, and I repeat, compound in this country. They can make you the best bed, the best gate, the best what, you know? And the amount of money they charge you, when you look at it, you will not find a child who is dying in Kalingalinga for malnutrition, because everybody has got money. But you know what we have done? We have not audited those people. We have not brought them to the informal sector so that they can be able to borrow money from banks. They can be able to scale up. You understand? And build their companies. We want them to remain where they are. Why are we doing that? For me, that is my question.
There is nowhere In fact, all the economies that we admire, the majority of the investments are made by small scalers. I think in France it's very important. In Germany, Mittelstand industries and so forth. It's key to the development of any country. It's the small industries that grow into adults, you know. Now, if you don't have the children, then you will never have the adults one day. Obviously, if you have got small scalers, you need to protect them. Here, with the emergence of supermarkets, these shopping malls and so forth, you know, even things which could be made locally here, they are all coming from down south. You know, the South Africans have, most of the products selling there are from South Africa. Now, how are we going to grow our economy if we can't sell even a simple consumer goods? You know, even vegetables sometimes have to come from there.